Hi, I'm Rosh from Energy Matters. Welcome to our podcast, Road to Zero, where we dive headfirst into all things renewable. Join us as we chat to industry experts, tech specialists, and some of your favorite TV and radio personalities, asking the renewable energy questions that you want answers to. Our goal, a zero carbon future. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Daniel Odman, who's the dealer principal of Melbourne BMW, as well as their future mobility manager, Christian Fazzari. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hi, Rosh. We're really well.
Very well.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you're very, very welcome. I can see your beautiful showroom in the background.
Yes, we're pretty proud of this. We opened up here October 2022. So we're 4 or 5 months in, and it's going really well. One of the pilot dealers for BMW globally to launch this new Retail Next format.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, we're definitely going to be asking you more questions about that later, and I have actually got some footage of it, which you didn't actually know about. So we'll end the podcast on a high. But look, before we get into that, I'm very keen to find out, and our viewers and audience, anyone listening or watching, would be very keen to know a bit more about you guys. I've obviously had the pleasure of meeting you both. But firstly, with yourself, Daniel, tell me a little bit about your journey to Melbourne BMW.
Yeah, okay. So, 25 years automotive, so long-term in the industry. I was fortunate enough in 2009 to join BMW Group Australia as looking after the state of New South Wales and ACT. And for the last 6 years of my time with them, I was the sales director nationally. So that was from 2015 and finished up at the end of 2020. Wanted to move back into the retail side, and there was a wonderful opportunity here at Melbourne BMW. I knew the business well, know the brand well, really excited by the PMA. And as we talked about, we knew we were going to be opening up a brand new site here at Kingsway. So wanted to make that shift back from the wholesale side into the retail side. And with the family settled here in Melbourne with schools and life, it was a bit of a no-brainer decision.
Yeah. Where were you living prior to this? Were you another state? Or?
Yeah, so we're born and bred in Sydney. I'd had so schooling all up in Sydney. Had a year's Rotary exchange with over in Germany. So my roots with German-based organisations and the like, and life is there. So I'd spent 12 months in a town called Bochum before going to uni, and then sort of automotive retail for the first 11 years with the family up in Sydney. Opportunity after being in that first 4 years looking after the state, back before being a home office environment was cool and trendy. No one used to do that. And so we had that for the first 4 years, 2009 through sort of 13, then moved, dragged the family down here. And, as I said, we settled and absolutely love it. So, it was really a decision to make.
Fantastic, mate. That's awesome. And Christian, future mobility manager. That is a wicked title, man. So tell us a bit about your journey. Yeah. Did you make that title yourself, or
no? It was gifted to me. So automotive industry for about 11 years, variety of brands, and ended up at BMW in 2018. Absolutely fell in love with the brand. I was very fortunate on my first week that they sent me to the M certification track day at Phillip Island, and that just put a stamp on the envelope. Like doing the M5 on the track, just bang, I was a BMW man from that moment, and they locked me in. Future mobility manager as of last year, when they introduced the role. It's been a long journey for EV. The role officially started in last year, but it's been going on since the i3's been around. It just wasn't formalized. So it's nice to have that now and have a very wide range of models for us to look at. And it gives customers a good point of contact for their new EV questions, because most people are very new to it. They have little to no knowledge, or they've just really started to explore it. So it's good to have someone there to be that point of contact.
Which is absolutely fantastic. I know, from our perspective, I mean, Energy Matters, we support zero carbon future, and electric vehicles has been something we've been keeping tabs on now for many years. It's always been a matter of time as to when we're finally going to get to that traction, and the costing's correct. It's kind of where it needs to be at, and then the infrastructure is available to support electric vehicles on a sort of much broader spectrum. So I kind of feel we're getting closer to that. But I guess one thing our audience wouldn't be aware of is how many electric vehicles there actually are available. And it certainly surprised me when I started delving into you guys and finding out more about BMW as to how many cars you're actually developing that are electric, and bikes, as the case might be. So we'll talk about those things in a bit more detail soon. But it really is fascinating. Now, before we get into the actual vehicles themselves, I mean, tell us a little bit about your showroom, because it is absolutely breathtaking. And I had the pleasure of being there, and as our audience knows, I road tested the i4 as well a couple of weeks ago, and we featured it on a TV show, which we'll talk about soon as well. But really, your showroom's stunning. So how did that come about? I mean, from a BMW perspective, you are a dealer. To have such a beautiful showroom that's not corporate, how does that work?
Yeah, so BMW's really had this white glass box philosophy for the better part of 2 or 3 decades. So, real cookie cutter approach, same tiles, same layout of the way that everything's displayed. So you've had that uniformity globally, and to the start of 2021. They were really looking at what are some of the ways that the brand can represent itself at a dealer level and a retail level, into the future. And they wanted something that I guess was a little bit more customer centric, a new retail format that was just going to be. It looked premium. It looked luxurious, but it felt more welcoming. There was more focus on digital. There'd be more focus on sustainability topics. And so we were lucky to be selected as one of only a handful of dealerships globally to pilot this idea. It was a lot less rigid, a lot more kind of, just welcoming and inviting. And so that's where it came about. We worked really closely with both BMW Australia and the key colleagues over in Munich on, I guess, their design philosophy and the look and the feel and the template. And I guess we sort of, with our local architects here, took it to a little bit of a different level. We needed to consolidate our operations onto one site. We were working out of South Bank and at Kingsway, and just with some and one of the challenges of any sort of redevelopment, it's not a greenfield site. We're having to deal within the confines of an existing building and an office space and whatever else. So it did limit a little bit some of the things we'd love to have done, but we certainly put a lot of focus into all of the customer topics and as many of the sustainability topics that we possibly could. So it's been a really cool project, and we certainly invite everyone to come down. We've got a wonderful cafe, great coffee, and as I said, it's a really warm, sort of inviting experience. A very different, I guess, environment to what a traditional automotive retail looks like.
Look, absolutely. And I think one thing that stood out for me is, just actually sitting down and having a cup of coffee or having a soft drink, or, I can even imagine on a Friday afternoon having a beer, as long as I'm not driving. It's just a really welcoming environment, and everyone's very passionate and energized. So my feeling walking into the place was, instantly, you have that whole stigma of, car showrooms and dealerships where you walk in and you're expecting to be lynched immediately, and, people trying to sell you a car. But with walking into BMW, it's almost like walking into a gallery, but really warm, sort of a nice environment. So you just awestruck immediately by the beauty, and you just want to look and see stuff. And it's so much, it's a very, beautiful environment. And then we're finding that.
And we're really finding that the guests are happy staying longer. Even with the team members, we had a partnership with Samsung. We've got a big 217-inch sort of media wall Samsung Pro display here. And on the Sunday night of the Australian Open tennis final, I think I had 10 or 15 of the team members here watching it on that big screen. So people like staying here. It feels welcoming. It's really relaxing. It's changed, obviously, the way that we interact. The green walls, the lighting elements. It does, as I said, it has that real sort of nice warmth to it.
Absolutely. And then really anyone as a customer, if they're bringing their car in for servicing, I mean, a lot of the time you just want to drop your car off and leave. But to be fair, I mean, in that environment, I could just see myself, opening up my laptop and just getting on with some work whilst I'm waiting for my vehicle.
The busiest part of the showroom is that big tech bench that we've got. So
there's always at least a couple of people just sitting there working away.
Which is brilliant. I love it. So tell me a bit more about your ownership. So Autosports Group, that's the I suppose the overarching owner of Melbourne BMW. Tell me about how that works.
Yeah, so the business was actually originally one of BMW Australia's 2 factory-owned stores, and Autosports Group purchased the business in 2017 from BMW Australia. Autosports is the largest retailer of prestige and luxury vehicles in the country. We've got over 55 sites, retail operations across Australia and New Zealand, representing 19 plus brands. So real depth, largely on the eastern seaboard, so through southeast Queensland, Sydney and Melbourne. They listed on the ASX in late 2016, so publicly listed company. Wow. And one of the reasons when I wanted to shift from BMW Australia into the retail environment, I wanted to choose an environment that had this brand, a wonderful PMA, but also with an investor partner that I really trusted and respected. And certainly we're certainly really fortunate to be representing by ASG.
Which is excellent. So, I mean, once again, it's just so much scope. So it really is, obviously BMW is, both your passions and the vehicle that we're talking, and the brand we're talking about today. But once again, just having that depth of ownership and relationships as well. You're very much educated as to what other brands are doing and where they are in the market, which kind of gives you more, obviously, has the conversations you can have with potential buyers be a lot broader, because you actually know your stuff, not just about BMW, but other vehicles in the market too. So answering those questions with integrity and intelligence is obviously vital with anyone wanting to make a consumer purchase. And certainly that'd give everyone a lot of confidence, obviously, with coming to Melbourne BMW and chat to you guys. One thing I do want to sort of talk about now is just really your inclusion on a couple of TV shows that we have coming up. We're obviously, Energy Matters Support, as you know, as a technology partner on 2 TV shows. And unfortunately for the audience, my gets to be on TV a couple of times. Inside of that, so not that I like it at all. But it's really, we're very excited to be contacted by Goodwe. Goodwe is one of our technology partners, as you guys know, and I know that you lent them a vehicle at one of the exhibitions that we held around renewable energy last year. And also you've lent us a vehicle for Renovate, Rebuild and Open Homes Australia, which is awesome. So can you tell us a bit more about the relationship between yourselves and Goodwe? I think it's more Holly that sort of set that one up, but
yeah, and look, I think one of the great things about having had that 11 years at BMW Australia is got some great relationships with the team there. And Holly joined from working at BMW Group Australia. So, and we work really closely with the corporate team that headed by Daniel Odman at head office. And in fact, I think when we first teamed up with them was just after we opened up here. So I think it was back in October 22. So it was a busy month for us. Obviously, they had that Eco Home Smart Solution at that All Energy Industry event in Melbourne. We provided an i4 as part of that kind of mock-up home garage display. And, we certainly, I think it's great for us to be seen to be an integrated part of, this solution. You've got home solutions, you've got automotive solutions, and how we can kind of work together with those sorts of topics, because it's not just about the vehicle, it's also what you do with the vehicle once you own it, the servicing of it, the energy requirements, charge points, and all of those sorts of topics and that's a big part of what Christian does as well.
No, absolutely. And once again, I mean, that's one thing that just really jumped out to me in the conversations I had with Goodwe is how much of, how big a support, you guys are as an organisation in terms of promoting a zero carbon future, carbon reduction. Of course, you want to get your vehicle out there, but, it's really, what that stands for. And obviously, you've got a lot of vehicles that aren't battery, but really, to be pioneers and promote, put the vehicle out there to promote the industry, in my opinion, is absolutely awesome.
On that, I mean, it's interesting. You talk about BMW and this dealership we've really set up as a bit of a celebration of the brand. As you walk around, there's so many more historical images of the vehicles. You know, the wonderful portfolio we've had over 100 years. You know, the look and the images around the Munich and the four-cylinder building, the plant. You know, they were releasing electric cars in 1972. Christian mentioned before the i3. It's the very first time that BMW had ever won Wheels Car of the Year. It was the 2014 Wheels Car of the Year. I'd been in the sales director role for literally 2 weeks when I had to go up and accept the award. It was the first time BMW's ever received it. It was for an i3, and it was such a tremendous car. So we've got that history of it. We probably don't celebrate it and acknowledge it and promote it enough to say that this really is a brand that's invested in it over a long period of time and has had the best credentials when it comes to sustainability, both of production and product, of any of the automotive brands. So it's something we're super proud of.
No, so you should be. I was lucky enough, as we mentioned, to drive your i4, and you're very gracious to let me take it for a spin and sort of really do a review. What I am going to do very quickly before we talk about the i4 is just play a very quick clip. It's not a very long one. It's just a very quick snapshot of the review, the video review that we did on the car. So I'm just going to play this.
I've been living on a good life, living like it won't stop, giving you the best of me, but now I'm feeling like it's all gone. Baby, where'd it go wrong? I thought we were meant to be. Now I've been living on a good life, living like it won't stop, giving you the best of me, but now I'm feeling like it's all gone. Baby, where'd it go wrong? I thought we were meant to be now.
So that's just a sneak preview, people. For anyone who hasn't watched that video review yet, you can watch me driving it. It's an awesome car. It's a beautiful car. I had a fantastic time. To actually watch the review, and if you are actually watching this podcast, the link is just below on our website, where you can actually read the full write-up and see the video. But can you tell me, obviously, although we've got all that content on our website, just in summary, why would someone want the i4? Tell me a bit about the i4.
Look, the i4 is just a really well put together sedan that is electric. It's got everything that you would want from a ICE vehicle with the electric components. My opinion here, it drives better than the petrol versions. Its distribution of weight just really centers it to the ground. I know you drove the 40. The 50 version in that is phenomenal. I compare it a lot to the M3 and the M4 purely based on its driving feel, and it is just point and go. It sits really low to the ground. It doesn't sway, and you get all that in the 40, but just a lot faster. So the 40 is great for someone who just wants a normal vehicle that's quick and it's going to do everything they want in their life, and the 50 is that performance version. So you've driven it. The 50's been such a success with its ordering and its demand. Unfortunately, its supply has been a little bit of a letdown on it. So the people who do have it have just raved about it. The people who are waiting for it are screaming. So it's like, give us the car so we can give to the people, and we'll have just all these really satisfied people, and I get to drive one more.
So lucky. I mean, for me, the i4 was just a dream to drive. I mean, I've like yourself, Christian. I mean, I was introduced to BMW in 98, and I worked on track day special events for BMW. So we just essentially had all the high rollers come to all the different racetracks around the UK and test drive the latest and greatest BMs, so all the M series, the Z series, and I remember the Z. I think it's a ZM of some. It was like almost like a bat vehicle. It was incredible. And then taking these cars around the track. So I got very quickly how BMW is a real driver's car. I mean, as a brand, it's aggressive. it feels like, you know you're driving when you're behind the wheel of a BMW. The i4 was a surprise in the sense that it didn't have that same feel of a typical BMW in terms of aggressive because it's electric, but it was just such a beautiful drive. I mean, it was just like, being behind that steering wheel, everything you wanted the car to do, it would do quickly. It was very responsive, very safe, very solid, and just like, literally electric. It was fast. So I can imagine the 50 would just be like a rocket, because I know it's a lot quicker, not more powerful. But even just the 40, which I drove, was very, very satisfying as a vehicle.
I think one of the things that BMW has done really well is, as technology systems, be it safety systems or drivetrains, sometimes there's a risk of it feeling more detached as a driving experience, but they know that that's a fundamental core of tenet of the brand, that ultimate driving machine message. And I think that, with even the super safe cars and the electric cars, we've still got something that is engaging to drive, and that's just what we do.
Absolutely, and that safety is very present when you're driving. I mean, we'll be, with all the alarms and features going off to warn you about pedestrians crossing the road or vehicles alongside you. I mean, you just feel incredibly safe and protected when driving. And as we all know, accidents are generally caused by the 95% of people outside of the vehicle. With the other, and that vehicle in particular is very, very aware of everyone, your environment, its environment. And then obviously has the gadgets in the car to also protect you and warn you of what's coming. So it's really good. You can't hide from what's happening outside the vehicle. It's there to warn you and to assist you, which is absolutely brilliant. Can you tell me, who do you consider to be your competitors? I mean, for the i4 itself, who are the competitors for you guys out there?
It's a tough question because there are a lot of brands that are doing a sedan type vehicle. The difficulty is price point, range, and the brand itself. What would be our true competitor would be the EQE from Mercedes, but their price point's a little bit higher, their car's a bit bigger. There's a lot of factors that don't just exactly add up. You've got the Hyundai, but then again, it's a Hyundai. The finishes, the quality aren't quite there. You've got the Tesla, which is probably the closest to what we would call a competitor. But once again, their finishes and their kind of overall car is not BMW quality. It's not Mercedes quality, but they're also at a cheaper price point. So in terms of direct competition, it's hard to say. Every vehicle has their own kind of price point. They have their own benefit, and they have their differences. Where you could sit is, they're all sedans, but they're all very different. Is there a competitor? No, I think the i4 is in the sedan market the best you can get at the moment.
Completely. And for me, it's almost, I when I was driving it, and in terms of what I communicated as well as, and through that the test drive, was it really, if you're a BMW owner, fundamentally, you have people that just buy BMWs. They've always bought BMWs. They love BMWs. They're BMW for life. And they just progressively, every 3 or 4 years, buy the next car, the next car, the next car. So really, for me, it's progressive. It's someone that's always owned a BMW and loves driving BMW and understands now, look, you know what? I have a responsibility. I need to reduce my carbon footprint. Things aren't moving in the way they should do from a climate change perspective. So you know what? I need to go electric. And they're the ones that actually then pick up the keys for an i4 and say, I'm going for my 3 Series, my 4 Series, my 5 Series BM, and now I want to progress and actually get an electric vehicle. So it certainly, for me, is that logical step. And anyone that wants to get into the electric vehicle market and actually wants to have, a European car, a really strong performing car with a great brand, and understand they're going to be well supported and looked after long term, that's certainly the progression they'll be making. Obviously, once again, it's about meeting the price point, and it's not the cheapest vehicle in the world. At the same token, it's obviously well priced for what it is. So I think it's a great vehicle. What would you say? And you have touched on it, and I suppose this has been the experience of everybody who's wanting to buy a vehicle at the moment, is availability. I've never seen this scenario ever. Like, it's just, you want a car, fantastic. it'll take you 9 months to get it. I mean, what's going on? I mean, why are cars so hard to get hold of?
So I was at BMW Australia when COVID first hit in sort of March 2020, and the decision was made to shut the factories down from, I think it was about the 20th of March till about mid-May that year. And the reality is that the demand never really dropped off, but they've never caught back those 2 months worth of production. And it seems weird to say that, but obviously the industry got hit with all the semiconductor shortages that was experienced across a whole heap of different industries, but ours used so many of those things in each of our vehicles. We then went into some of the wiring loom challenges that we had with, the conflicts raging over in Eastern Europe. So, those two things were probably the start of it, and it just hasn't really been able to be improved. And now we're seeing, there's lots of articles out in the press about 60,000, vehicles on vessels all around the country, and it's so you've had the production issues pertaining to supply, and now you've got the freight and logistics ones, and some of those have been global. And then some of those are more specific to local challenges, because obviously Australia's a big island continent. We want to keep it safe. A lot of the things that we're getting are coming from Northern Hemisphere cold climates at this time of year. So some bugs and whatever else, escape blizzards in combine harvesters and whatever else, those get loaded onto vessels, and when they hit Australia in December, January, the quarantine officials are right onto it to say, guys, we've got to check, we've got to inspect these vessels. So quite often it happens when it's hot here and it's cold there. That's when we get that, and I guess they're struggling for staff, like lots of industries at the moment. They probably got holidays and summer holidays and whatever else. So there's just not as many people processing on wharves as you'd like, combined with the quarantine challenges. So there's so many different factors that have gone into it. But we think, certainly in looking at our pipeline, we'd imagine that by sort of middle Q2 to the back end of the year, it starts to normalise. It's probably as tight as it's been, and I think BMW did a really good job through most of that sort of COVID period of maintaining good levels of supply. But yeah, it's been far trickier than what we expected. Yeah,
wow. I mean, a friend of mine, he's just gone out and bought a BYD, obviously a smaller budget, wanted to get, and it took him. He could see his car on the tracker at sea, just floating around for for a couple of weeks, or even back a few weeks before it actually managed to be in dock. And I think the time blew out. It was supposed to be collecting, I think it's the 20th of December, and he picked it up on Monday. So it's ridiculous. So is that literally what's happening? Some of the quarantine issues, you've got cars floating around, just gathering dust, waiting.
Look, we are just fortunate at the moment that there's enough awareness of it, because there are so many. I mean, we're making those calls on a daily basis to say, look, I'm sorry, but we don't have an update. We'll let you know when we do. But it is, you're right. You can track vessels, and so there's good degrees of transparency. So when we're saying it's delayed, we can track it down to it.
It generally is. So if I wanted to buy a BMW today, sorry, Christian.
No, it's fine.
If I was just going to say, it does help when
there is news coverage. The news coverage does help the clients' expectations, because the first calls you make going, oh, it's delayed, it's all on you, and then they see it on the news and they understand. Yeah.
They realise it's real. It's not, you're not just trying to pull their leg and you forgot to order their car. It actually is. Yeah, it is actually here. It is built, it's ready, but it's just floating. So if I wanted to buy a car today, if I was like, right, you know what, my car's fine, I had its day, I need an upgrade, I need a new car, and I walked into your showroom. I mean, what would there be a vehicle available for me to buy immediately if I wanted to buy an i4, or would I have to then say, do I have to order it and wait for the 9 months? How does it work?
Look, i4, yes, you will be waiting. There is quite a heavy backlog of people who, for the past 2 years, have ordered and they've waited, and their cars are still going into production. So there is a bit of a queue that needs to be met. But it depends on your flexibility of model. If you can go an SUV like an iX3, yes, we've got supply. We can definitely assist there. There's the iX40, which is a much bigger SUV. Those we are able to supply. It just really comes down to clients' flexibility.
And what
in a market where,
sorry,
the delay. In a market where 2/3 of the market, the passenger market in Australia is SUV, having that supply of an all-electric product is really beneficial.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And what would you say? So right now, from a consumer's perspective, I mean, what percentage of consumers, when they walk through into your showroom, are kind of EV orientated versus just wanting a petrol car? I mean, what would you say?
Yeah,
right now?
I mean, so I look, it's a fascinating question because in my role at BMW Australia, I was watching, I guess, the development in other markets and just how quickly this electric wave was progressing. And you'd look at the Nordic countries, you'd look at Southeast Asia and Malaysia, Thailand, you'd look at California and the States, and they were getting from 30 to 40 to 50% share of their total volume being XEV, electric, hybrid. And we were languishing at, bottom rung on all of these tables, 1% of our volume, barely 1% of our volume. And certainly that was our experience in retail here. In 2021, it was about 1% of our sales. For full year 2022, it grew to about 6% of our total volume, up 295% in absolute terms. And that was all in the full electric, not in the hybrid. We're sort of 2-to-1 in terms of sales of BEV to hybrid or PHEV. It's the same story for Mini. So Mini went from about 11% in 2021. So they've had a stronger kind of faster journey with electric products to being over 20% last year and growth of about 50%. And you mentioned before the bikes. So we've got heritage bikes and we've got adventure bikes and we've got performance bikes and now we've got electric bikes. So our CEO4, and again, a bit like i4, it's one of the ones that's had phenomenal demand and not a lot of supply. But going back to your original question, what's the inquiry levels? I'd say it's probably growing to sort of 1 in 4, 1 in 5. So we don't necessarily have supply for 1 in 4, 1 in 5 at this stage, but across the broader industry, we're seeing, huge take up from the consumer side. And I think that's off the back of, again, some better levers being pulled from a state and federal level, but also just because the products are so much better. And there's a real sort of credibility and authenticity in those products.
No, I guess, I mean, we'll get to the industry in a second, just more so from the federal and state level and what needs to be done, what could be done better. But just from a sort of geeky perspective, what is your, what's coming next for you guys, and what you're most excited about? What's the next arrival that has got you guys all excited and staring at your screens?
Yeah, so the next one that we've got coming probably early to mid Q2 will be the iX1, which will be an all-electric version X1. Now, the X1 is our number one selling vehicle. It's our big volume car. So to have an electric version of that is already proving to be immensely successful. We're having a lot of pre-orders and ordering take in. So the car's already now sold up until December. And this is a model that hasn't even landed in the showrooms to show people.
Yeah. Yeah, wow.
They set it at an amazing price point. It's under the LCT threshold for a premium BMW electric vehicle. So they've nailed the price, they've nailed the specification of the car, and it's being shown in volume of sales.
How much is the next one?
So a petrol X1 you could pick up starting at about 65. The electric you will pick up for just under 85. So 84,950, I think, top of my head. So you can pick them up pretty cheap.
That's fantastic. Very, very good. And what is the coolest piece of tech? I mean, first before we get to that, what is your favorite vehicle in the BMW range? I mean, if you could have any one of them and you say, you know what, well done, Christian, you've done a really good job this year. Pick your vehicle. What would it be?
Yeah, look, that's a tricky question because I do have the fortunate situation where I can just take the BMW that I want to take. So if I was going to buy one, it's probably the better question. I would be buying an i4 M50. That is just you have to drive it. It is just so much fun. It's electric. The torque on that car is just unreal. It's got everything you want it to. If I was buying one, it would be the i4 M50.
Well, I'll probably go something that's not quite out yet. So you talked about what's exciting in the horizon for BMW in the back end of the year. We launch what's called an XM, which is our sort of flagship performance SUV. So, we talked before about Australia being a market where 2/3 of our sales are SUV, and about 25% of them are BMW M, the ultimate driving machine, BMW. And so to merge those two with what is an electric car in the XM, I'm lucky enough I haven't driven one, but I've been driven in one overseas on a racetrack, and that thing is next level. It has wonderful presence. It's agile. It's got the size of an X7, but in an electric car that's mobile and athletic. And I'm a sucker. So I'll be up for that at the end of the year.
Mate, you've sold me. I want to drive one as well now. So I guess, before we finish up, what I'm kind of also keen to understand is, what, in your opinion, needs to be done, to really push EVs along? What changes would you like to see made to the industry to really sort of flick the switch where inquiry levels, become like 1-for-1, if not, swing in EV's favour? Obviously there's stuff that's not happening to a consumer level. Otherwise, every single consumer would be walking through the door saying, I want an EV. So clearly consumer confidence is not there yet. What needs to change?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of the things that need to change happen very slowly. So one of the big concerns for people is charging and locations of chargers. So we are now seeing lots of companies come out with solutions and, public charging stations. We're seeing BP and Shell finally start putting charging stations at their petrol stations. So the concern of, where am I going to charge is going to eventually become a lot easier for people. The next one is timing, how long it takes to charge. A lot of people don't want to be sitting around for 30 minutes while their car charges up. But this is something that as technology advances, those charging times are just going to get shorter and shorter and shorter. So a lot of things that need to be done are happening, whether it is, massively public knowledge or it's all happening in the back end, different stories, but they are happening.
Yeah, and I guess from my perspective, it feels like in this country, all of the push towards it has happened either by industry, either the automotive brands themselves, organisations like yourselves, the charging, they've come in and really pushed it, or it's been consumer. And the element that's been missing has really been that regulatory topic. And it's still, there's some signs, some optimism, and some things that they've done recently around capital gains and whatever else that benefits. But for a country that has a luxury car tax, we don't have a luxury anything else tax. How we can be still taxing at those levels on products as important, technologically advanced, sustainable as electric just sort of defies logic. So, I think we've got more things, more boundaries to push there. I'm really pleased with what, clearly big change in consumer mindset, and you can see that from the inquiry levels. I think from a brand perspective, all of the automotive brands are bringing in lots of good products, and they're getting better with every generation. And I guess we're starting to see some green shoots with government, but we'd like to see more. I think there's more they can be doing to encourage it. And every market where they've done it, you've seen the take up. So, we're keen to support.
Absolutely. And look, it really is an absolute no-brainer. It's always going to be a frustration of everyone, including ours, that, until the government sort of steps in and, from a regulatory perspective and says, let's remove luxury car tax on electric vehicles. It's certainly going to be, in our opinion, a solution to reducing, a person's carbon, the carbon footprint. And of course, unfortunately, we all know that, behind the scenes, where money comes from to fund countries, to fund economies, is unfortunately inconsistent with the direction we need to head to reduce the planet's carbon footprint. So there has to be that point at which choices are made and decisions are made in the best
And it doesn't need to be a big distorting rebate. But again, we're charging consumers in this country far too much for those sorts of important technologies, and that's a really easy no-brainer. That's completely inconsistent with someone buying a really expensive boat or a really expensive something else. Let's not penalise those really good sustainable vehicles at the cutting edge of technology.
Do you think, in your opinion, that EVs will have a big enough impact to reduce a person's carbon footprint?
Definitely. An individual's, and it's not just the EV, it's everything that comes along with the EV. Most consumers purchasing an EV, it's not their first step into reducing their footprint. They've got the solar panels already. They've got the battery at the house. So yes, it is a massive step for the globe to reduce our carbon emissions, but is it going to save the planet? Not by itself, but it is the first step.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And just a little bit more before we finish off, just on ASG themselves and as an organisation, I mean, what are you guys actually doing aside from selling these vehicles, which is brilliant, but to reduce your carbon footprint and promote sustainability?
Yeah, so I guess it's such a big industry and such a big business, and I think so many of these organisations grapple with these topics. I think the first bit goes into making sure that we're representing the brand in the right possible way, and promoting these vehicles that are available. The second bit goes into, I guess, the sites that we operate. When you're running 55 retail operations across the country, what are you doing with waste management, water management, solar panels, sustainable use of energy through, particularly when it comes to all of our workshops, because it's a very big part of our business as well. It's not just the sales side of things, it's also all of the after sales, the service, the parts, and so making sure that we're very much at the forefront of best practice in those areas as well, and then obviously from a head office point of view, is even things like this, we don't need, we represent across Australia and New Zealand. We don't need to be flying in and around the country all the time. We can get productive meetings done and in virtual time. And we've seen that kind of movement, I guess, across the globe over the last couple of years. And if we don't need to see the inside of domestic terminals again, I'll be quite happy. So I've had enough of that. So I mean, look, it's certainly something that as a publicly listed company we take really seriously, and from a both a sustainability topic and also a corporate social responsibility topic, is high on ASG's agenda.
No, fantastic. Well, thank you very much. And look, and guys, once again, thank you very much for your time today. I mean, it's been obviously a pleasure hosting this podcast with you both, learning more about Melbourne BMW and the vehicles that you got coming up, as well as what's available right now. So I'm a fan, as you know, and I appreciate your time today.
No, we love working with you, and we value this time together as well. And we look forward to seeing you and all of your guests and your colleagues and anyone watching this. Always welcome to come in and join us. We'd love to see you.
No, fantastic. Thanks, guys. So look, before we finish up, remember you can get three free solar quotes by visiting our website, as well as a free energy bill comparison. So jump onto energymatters.com.au and get yourself a quote for solar power if you already haven't done so. And not forgetting that EV chargers are now available. So our solar retailers can install EV chargers and batteries obviously on your home. So certainly if you have got solar power and you're looking for the next step towards going EV, get yourself a battery installed and certainly get an EV charger. And make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn. And when you're next to Melbourne, if you're in Melbourne, there's no excuse not to pop into to Melbourne BMW. So just to give yourself a little bit of a preview as to how that showroom looks, I'm going to play a very short clip. Go and check it out for yourself.
This particular vehicle is provided by Melbourne BMW. And they, work with prestigious cars and have, premises all across the country. and they happen to be a phenomenal dealer for BMW, operating the Melbourne store, newly renovated. The place is absolutely stunning. Multi-million-dollar renovation, and certainly a jewel in the crown, I'd say, for BMW.